Hello everyone, this is Eli, and I got a different game for you guys, something I've been playing for a little while, and I'm trying to make some new videos, so let's try this out here. This game is called Dream Car Builder. This is a sandbox soft body physics designing game by, actually I don't recall the guy's name, but he made a couple of Flash games way back in the day for making some really cool physics-based driving games. So this is the 3D version, Dream Car Builder. So actually, it's Roman Konyukov. If I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's a real cool game though. Very high ceiling in terms of a learning curve. I wouldn't even call it a curve. It's more like a sheer cliff face. But there's quite a bit of a fun game going on here. So let's try this out. We got a couple game modes here. We got sandbox, multiplayer, single player. We can pick out our map and whatnot. So let's just we'll do crash test site. I was playing on this earlier, but let's show off what I've been building off here. This is another car I started working on a little earlier. Let's load a car here. I've done a couple of cars going on here, but let's do this. It can get pretty in depth. Let me press spacebar here. That'll pull up what it's supposed to look like in game. So this is what one of the many vehicles I've built here. Let's just press enter and we'll start. Let me press escape, pull up the map, and just reset here. But as you can see, they got suspension going on here. So this is a car that I've built and designed. There's really not much in terms of gameplay audio here. But it's quite a fun game once you understand what you're doing here. So let's go build a car here. So let's go back to the garage, clear design. This is going to take a few minutes here, but let's build a car. First things first, I always like to make a square platform just to kind of start things off. I've watched quite a few tutorials. We have a couple of different menus here. We have on the left, we have the main 3D view. And on the right, we have on the bottom, we have our side view. And on the top right is our top-down view. Or bottom-up view. Yeah, it's top-down. So let's get started, shall we? I'm going to start working off on the top right square here. Just gonna build a box it off. Just try and make everything more or less supported here. Let's see here, and we're gonna do another one on this side. I'm gonna section this off here and put a midpoint using the M key. So right now we just have our basic frame here. We're going to go to the bottom right one here on the right, and we're just going to start boxing this off. We do have symmetry mode enabled, so it's building on both sides here. Oh, and I'm going to click on the seat in the bottom left. I can pick the seat. I'm going to switch to a sport seat. And we'll go from there. We're going to put some triangles, box this off here. Go to the main view, box things off. These do also have weight. You have elastic limits, which is before it breaks. The weight and hardness, which is basically just makes makes it harder or softer. Let me just put this back to, I think this is what, at 10? Yeah, put this back to 10. And box this off a little more. And because we're working in third person, we're gonna start doing some other stuff here. Back to the bottom left or bottom right square, excuse me. And back to the main view. Woo. Control C, Control V do work, so it makes things quite nice to use. And this is basic view I got going on here. I can, looking at the bottom right square, we can click and drag and modify things left and right, up and down and whatnot, but I'm just going to bring it down a couple just so we're a little more visible here. And now we're going to get into finishing up some boxes here. Now we're going to start the major wall that most people struggle with, is designing suspension. Now, I've watched a couple of people building in this game, and I've watched many videos on and going through the discussions on for this game on building suspensions, and I have gone with a couple of relatively simple designs that I have used. We're gonna start going to the main one here, just making sure we have everything lined up. We could probably move these out just a little bit. Like I said, we just want this enough to be able to hold the weight of this vehicle. So now we're gonna triangle off our control arms. So what we are looking at here is that these top squares here is our control arm. So this is our upper, this is our lower, and our lower control arm. So this is what's holding up our car here. Now, using our midpoint tool, I can just click on a piece of frame, click M, puts a point in the middle on either side. I like to then put a second frame across, another midpoint, and go back to our main frame here. I would like to make a couple of points. So using the built-in graph here on this right side, I've made a triangle, as you can see. What we are going to do now is we are going to the top right. You can see we have our dot here in the middle. I'm going to click and drag our triangle we made in this one, in the bottom right one here, and I'm going to drag it over. And then I'm going to grab, you can click on the S or click on the shock or use the S key as the hotkey. And that is our front suspension. I'm going to duplicate this on the other side here. Might copy this. Oop. Make sure to click the point, not drag it. And you can also design these however you please. The placement of points is a tad tricky, but you could place things freely, so it'll let you get going relatively easily. Now we're going to copy the same as the front in terms of for the rear suspension here. Frame, midpoint. We're going to build our triangle. And then drag it over. Use our shock. And that's your basic suspension. One thing I like to do is I like to go to the shocks, configure them a little bit. As is, they don't have any pre-compression or anything. They're not squeezed already with any weight. You have things like messing with the hardness, how much shorter you can compress your shock, how the damping is, how much longer it can go, and RC, which is basically how hard and how basically fast it opens up here. I try not to mess with a lot of this, but the one thing I really do mess with is the pre-compression. I will bump that up just a little bit. I will add that a 0.3 to 1.3. Another thing I like to do, if we go to the top right here, I like to grab the outermost points. Going back to the main view here, we're going to just drop them a little bit. That gives us a tad bit of ground clearance, and that pretty much sets us here. Now, for the hard part, we're going to design our steering here. This is another thing I copied online off of the discussions pages. So for our rear suspension, we are pretty much done. If you so want, you can copy it and just lock the steering here. So what I do is I divide it again. I make another midpoint on top and bottom, do another one, another midpoint, and basically just come out, drag out for a little bit, make sure you're doing the same on top and bottom. So we are identical. Now we have another square, little rectangle here. What we're going to do, another midpoint. Now we're going to grab our wheel tool, click on the inner midpoint, drag it out to the outer midpoint, and that's your wheel. And since this is a rear suspension, it does not need steering. I'm going to grab our frame tool, and we're just going to lock this. So, and now this allows you to do stuff. Let me just grab this whole thing. You can grab it, get yourself some camber and caster. Yeah, gets you some back rake there. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to up the wheel radius just a little bit. We'll do it to 0.5. As you can see, press spacebar, we'll go back into a realistic view here, and it's going quite well so far. For the front suspension, same as the back, we're going to pull this out a little bit, try to make things more or less about the same. Frame, subdivide it, go back, subdivide it, put our wheel on, bump that up to 0.5. Now we can start. So I'm going to test our suspension. As you can see, it did not really work that well. What I forgot to do was I forgot to reinforce our rear suspension. So we're going to escape back to the garage, and we are going to support that, support that, support that, support that, support that, support that. Any little bit of weight helps overall. Alrighty, let's try that again. Go back. Now, this does work. Suspension is a tad funky going on here. I believe we don't have very much in terms of diagonal bracing here. So we're going to triangle it out here. So that's a little better. Our front suspension is a little weak. So remember to triangle everything here. Whoop. Control Z, Control. Okay, so now our suspension's a little better. We do got a bit of a wibble wobble here in the front. Let's just go ahead and a bit more triangles here. And okay, now for steering, what I am going to do is I'm going to click on this frame back here on the back of the control arm. And, well, there's two ways you can go about it. You can click on this one or the innermost one here, but the videos I've seen have usually done it up here, so we're going to mid-divide that. Grab our rod here. I'm going to click and drag right to the middle, and that should be good. So that's our basic steering. Now, we are still sitting on the frame here, so what I'm going to do... Oh, you know what? I did not do any pre-compression, so we're going to bump that back up. As you can see, we got a little bit of suspension going on here. But we're not going anywhere, so we need to put an engine in. Engines obviously do add a little bit of weight. Engines, to me, are usually more of a second thought, but here is our engine. This looks like a standard 3-rotor. We can upgrade and downgrade it here to basically anything from itty-bitty little lawnmower engine to a little better motorcycle, air-cooled, more air-cooled, upgraded stuff. Now we get into that. There's a little 4-banger. There's a V6. I think it stops at the V6, but it can, every upgrade obviously will determine your size here and the weight. So I think the heaviest is 200 kilograms, while the lightest is 65. I usually like to leave it in the middle. I like using the motorcycle engine for most vehicles. It gives you your specs. Right now, we're about 2,000 kilos. I believe you can switch that over to American units if you so desire. But again, with engines being more of a fourth secondary thought, I like just putting the engine right in the front and just kind of shove it there. It makes it funny. So we're going to grab our transmission tool, and we are going to click and drag all the way to the innermost point of our wheel. As you can see, it is still not hooked up, so I'm going to grab our transmission tool a second time, click and drag all the way out to where the wheel sits. Now, this does look a tad funky, but if we go to the mode here, we got a little bit of a car going on here. So now if I press shift, we are now in all-wheel drive, which, since I'm only powering the back 2 wheels, this is more of a rear-wheel drive car. So, as you see, the suspension is slowly doing stuff. So we go ahead and stop the car here. Press escape. We're going to go over to the test course here. So I'm going to click and reset. So we can just show off the work we've done. As you can see, not quite enough ground clearance. So escape, go to the garage. We're just going to grab both sets of control arms and just douche. And I might even drop this guy down a skosh. I'll do both. So, as you can see, we do got a bit of suspension ride here. Now, as you can see, we are still bottoming out quite a bit here. This is when you start getting into tuning your suspension and all that. What I can do here is I can grab these, bring them down a little bit, grab these, bring them down a little bit, drop these, whoop, Control Z, grab these, bring them down a little bit, grab these, pull them down a little bit. Let's see how that goes. It did not like that. Let's Control Z that, leave them just about vertical here. Yeah, suspension's being a little funky. This is the hardest part. Just making sure it, start getting into weird suspension geometries and whatnot. So yeah, the wheel's starting to tuck in under bumps, and now it rides like utter garbage. So let's fix that here. How can I fix this? I don't think I really can. I could probably make the back tires a little bigger here. So let's jump those up to 0.7. Jump these up to 0.7. Now it's just absolutely ridiculous 4-wheeler. But it is absolutely hilarious just to watch these roll over. But yeah, as you can see, the suspension does move around quite a bit. Whoop! And I broke it again. Not the most stable of cars, but this gets most people started for playing the game. So tune as you see fit. and this is just kind of more of an introductory crash course. So hopefully this kind of helps you with anything. Take care, guys, and enjoy.